Recorded start. So, yeah, welcome everybody for joining this mini webinar, and glad to introduce Livia. Livia, the floor is yours.
Yes, I'll start with screen sharing first because probably that's easier. Sure. So, first of all, I'm going to introduce basically the fork of Just Chat. Just Chat can be downloaded from the link Anton provided or will provide in the chat. And this is the particular case. And we're going to explain the structure. The thing is, we started from the issue there is no easy way to create a chatbot agent without having like lots of complications. And we wanted to simplify this process. As such, this Just Chat repo answers to these issues that we had. And it's constructed basically out of, let's say, three major parts. You have a part that allows agents to be like personalized, basically to use whatever you need in your chatting part. For example, in this case, we had this sugar genie assistant, sugar genie generic, and sugar genie original. You have the, let's say, functional agents, which are the annotation agent and the reg agent, and also the chat naming agent. So these are basically the entities that work. And you have what we use now, that is the containerized version, the Docker container files, which is found here in the Docker Compose YAML. So in any any part, either the original repo, the main, or the branch that I have with Glucose DAO, you're going to have this Docker Compose YAML file. Well, you'll have the containers used for running the chat UI. You'll have the Just Chat agents, which is basically the direct container for the chat, the one that merges basically everything. You'll have the Hugging Chat UI, Chat Mongo, and Melisearch. The Hugging Chat UI is the interface with Hugging Chat. The Chat Mongo is the one that stores basically the history of your chatting. And the Melisearch in this case is because we added semantic search to our agents, and we needed the Melisearch container to run it. These containers basically help the users not to have to do environments on their computers, and basically they just download an image and are able to run within the containers. The structure inside of it is basically predefined. So you as a, let's say, direct user, if you're just using Just Chat and not other things which use ports, you just have this file and you don't have to edit. That's the nice part. So as a newbie user, you just git clone the repo and you follow the instructions in the README, which says Docker Compose up. Well, with some added code, obviously, for ease of access. But that's the generic part. What happens when you run this code? Well, there is the image pulled from the image of the container pulled from our repo, and you'll be able to access. Let me show you, because we're actually having now running it in on server. You'll be you'll be able to access something like this. So an interface like this. Well, you have some, well, we predefine these questions like the title and the question itself, like the prompt, and we'll be able to use the functions used. So that's kind of how it generally looks and what you'll get. What you have to know is basically how to fine tune this, because you'll have to know the workflow behind it. And the workflow is the best thing here in the chat agent profiles YAML. So this is one of the important files you work with. Here, basically, we have it structured, well, at least I thought it like this, in a free part. So the Sugar Genie assistant, which is the one you're actually seeing here in the interface that answers the question, it's basically an agent which just takes the questions from the user. It can be from the example, or it can be literally here written like, I don't know, what are the dangers of high glucose, for example. So they're going to take the input from the user, and then basically the system has the role of redirecting. In which way? Let's make it a bit smaller and look at the code while it's thinking. Yeah, I have to make also this one smaller. So it basically has to see if the question is a generic one or a specific one. If it's a generic one, it should end up here in Sugar Genie generic, which does not have any tools. It's just implemented with the model, like with Gemini Flash. And it's literally going to give like a, well, ChatGPT, yeah, model direct answer. If it's a specific question, it should go to Sugar Genie Original, where, because we have this library just agents, we implemented tools. As you can see here, we have tools defined. These tools are, are functions, either from things that you write here in the just chat, like in agent tools, and you do a py and definitely retrieve stuff, or from imports, because look, in this case, it is just semantic search.maily.tool. So it uses the just semantic search repo, and it uses the search tools from the Maily search. And let's see what the results was in the generic questions we have asked. That I found. Severe hypoglycemia. Okay, diabetes cures, glucose dysregulations. Here, it didn't specify any documents. So it's from the generic part. If we would ask something that would come from like a specific document we have loaded, because we have indexed some papers, then the agent is trained. Yeah, it's trained to actually answer to specify the sources. Always specify which came from generic knowledge and which came from files. Because if it would have answered with the ones here that it would interrogate documents, then it would have been, let's say, more detailed. So basically, you have these three systems for answering questions. What is useful, you can use different models for each of them. And basically, you can fine-tune it to your requirements. The chat naming agent, reg agent, and annotation agent are basically back working agents you're not using directly. What you can do to check in this case, well, it's true, the one I've shown was not run locally, was actually run on the internet server, like I told you. You can actually access it. Anton, please paste the link because you are my assistant in this case. What you can check in this part is actually free ports. So I'll probably actually have to run it. Docker compose up. Let's run also the local version. I didn't open because yeah. So you see, this is what happens when you run the Docker compose. It starts the containers. You have to wait a bit until it starts. But why I do this is because I want to show you the address access points. You have three important access points. You have 0, localhost 3000, where the chat is running. So there you can go and run the chat I've shown you. You have the localhost 7701, where the mail search is. And actually, while this one is loading, I can show you where you find the address. See, the app port here. That's where you find it in Docker Compose YAML. And for the mail search, don't be don't be fooled by it. It's here. That is 7701. And there is the Swagger address, which is localhost 8091. And Swagger, it's good for testing, but also for indexing, because one of the use case we envisioned is basically taking documents, PDFs, probably papers or whatever, and index it in the mail research database to be used. So look, now that we have HTTP, okay, we can access stuff. So like I've told you, let's see. So 003,000, we click it and we wait a bit. And it will open the local version of what we have. See, exactly the same thing that is local. Now, if we use this one, this is the dashboard for mail research. Here, we have indexed PDFs and text files. Well, you choose the index. We chose glucose-DAO in this case because that was what our use case. But I mean, I don't know. It can be papers about cancer or lifespan or whatever your choices. And you can actually search directly. I don't know, smartwatch, because I know there was a so enhanced blood glucose with a smartwatch. And here you have literally the content. The content of the paper. This is to actually check what you have indexed. And the last options I mentioned, 000,891/docs. In this case, this is the Swagger endpoint, where you have important functions. The most important functions you're going probably to use is this one, index markdown folder and upload markdown folder. In this case, let us see. Markdown folder is used also for text files, not only markdown. So in case you have literally text files where you've written something, in our case, it was written about information about glucose-DAO, you can access it. You can use it in case if you have it locally, that is in your repository destination. So here you can give the path and it will index. You have this write out button for every green command. You give the folder path, and in this case, the index name, like I said, in our case, it was glucose-DAO, so it was simple, and execute. And it will interactively feed up to mail search. The upload markdown folder is in case you have not directly in your repo, somewhere on your computer. And I think we haven't, I haven't tried it because I haven't had this case. It might need a zip file. So a zip file with text or markdown, but it's the same principle. And this one is the most fun of all, upload PDFs, because probably most of you are searching papers, or most humans are searching papers on the internet, and well, they download PDFs. So you just give an index name because that's what is required. You have to have a Mistral key. That's the important part actually to keep in mind. And you select literally file for wherever in your computer, and it's going to be indexed. The only problem at the moment is that it's only one file. We haven't yet made folder. That's kind of a tricky part, but otherwise it works. So these three functions are important because you can upload whatever, and it will be stored in the mail search index, which is actually stored on the machine you're running. For example, in this computer, I did the most of my training and testing and so forth. And I had lots of indexes because I indexed them. But on the server, when I had to upload, Obviously, I did not want to re-index the whole papers I did before. Okay, there were not that many, but still, it was not fun. You can move the indexes. It's not yet a code made there, but it can be done through mail search and bash commands. I mean, we managed to do it, and it's doable with exterior sources. But important to note that mail search memory is not like only per process. You don't lose whatever you've indexed and you have to re-index things again. These commands are actually explained, I'm sure of it because I got a bit angry. They're a bit explained in the README files of the branch, where I took out post endpoints and whatever it does and written there, so that users that just download this library and I like, what am I going to do, can search here. So it's kind of documented. Actually, if we've missed any kind of help that we could give the user in its first approach, we appreciate like contribution notes, memos, and so forth, because we kind of try to put stuff in order. But I mean, it can always be a bit hazy. Why this library is so useful for people that just start is that it does have some requirements that you need to understand, but they're fewer than if you'd started literally on your own. And basically, they don't show that much of a problem because they're documented. So if it's an issue, you'll find the answer in this, like, let's say, environment. Is it either just chat, just agents, or just semantic search? And since the developer, I mean, that our team is working on them, it's easily to be solved. I think it's more approachable. I mean, at least I admit I'm kind of a newbie compared to at least to you guys. You've worked more in this area than I did. And I found it easier to actually look around here and to have things explained. I actually improved the readmes in some cases. And basically, we thought that it could have several use cases, either by private individuals or by startups who want to do like chatbots, or for people wanting to interrogate their database of, we don't know exactly, PDFs, text files, markdowns. I mean, they're a series. You can use semantic search and classical search. So you kind of have lots of customizable traits. And it's like we only did the basic. Yeah, let's say the things that were most evident. I mean, I'm pretty sure there are lots of other use cases we haven't thought of, but that can be developed. So kind of in the glucose DAO case, for example, I thought it's a good way to introduce our startup, but also to have users able to research papers. I mean, to search if is there a paper regarding this stuff, the latest, when, how, and to receive generic answer at the same time. Because if you go and ask just ChatGPT, ChatGPT would give you a generic answer. But in this case, is more precise answer, or let's say with more information behind it. And so it's kind of like a double method that would help both the developer and the user. So that's how we kind of see it. So I think that should be about yes, Anton.
Yeah, I just wanted to add several things about the idea. The thing is, here, I mean, for a like minimal thing, you just have to edit YAML file. You don't have to write code. In terms of tools, it's just Python functions with comments. So like any Python would go. And also we have dependency resolution. And the idea is that, for example, if we want to have, like, for example, one agent will be like on some knowledge graph on drugs, another one will be on, for example, some open genes, you can actually develop it in separate repository, and you can, because in agents a lot matters that you have to talk with it and see how it answers. And then it's not yet developed, but we plan to have something like an app store that you can publish this agent. And also now, Livia actually showed it, but she didn't explain the details, that we have this agent locator function. That means that actually it was inspired by Nick Hill, because we had a situation when we had those in current longevity GPT's repository, we had agents that were good answering with ChatGPT Mini on genetic questions, and some user asked some really stupid general questions that obviously regular ChatGPT knows better than ChatGPT Mini that is better with function calling. And for this reason, Livia, maybe you can show the agent locator so people would, if you are sharing the screen. So the idea is that you can have multiple agents, and also in the user interface, you can switch between agents. And you can write system prompts so we use this agent locator function to actually switch between agents. So we have some kind of routing that yes, so it's technically just a Python function. So all these tools is technically you just reference. So here it was published in, I believe, just agents library. So if it is like in your dependencies, you just reference package and function number, and an agent can use it. The most important part, it should have like comments, because otherwise it would not understand how to use it. And if you don't have, you can write it in place just by editing agent tools Python package. Yeah, so this is the idea. And now we are continuing to develop it further. And I mean, some of you, like I believe Vlada Tishenka and Nikhil, are active practitioners of LLM agent stuff. So so now we actually want two things. First, obviously, the questions, and the second is your feedback, what you think is useful, what you think should be changed, and so on.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for taking through all of this. So I have one question. So when you run the Docker locally and upload files in Mealy search, so the answers with the RAG would only be working in the local Docker, or how do we push that also to the cloud, the vector embeddings that Mealy search has created?
Well, you just will have to transfer the indexes, the Mealy search database, basically. That's what is going to happen. Because, or Anton, I see that you want to say something.
Yeah, I want to say, so one thing is what Livia did, that she just, so we have named volumes that are connected with like index of Mealy search. And in case of Livia, she just moved named volumes to the server. However, in our case, we have this like with the Docker Compose. By the way, we also have support of Podman that is like Docker, but way safer because it doesn't run as root. So by this way, so we provided like a way to quickly like deploy stuff. But actually, because we support Mealy search, you don't have to actually use it's like not hardwired. You give, if you, Livia, if you show like the Docker, the environment variables, you can actually set up environment variable, and instead of using local Mealy search from your machine, you can, if you have a Mealy search that you deployed somewhere in the cloud, you can redirect it to the cloud. And also, like there are some things that because the core idea of just chat is like to start quickly and to iterate quickly. At least we think it can be quickly, and get things like tested and quickly deployed. But for example, obviously for production deployment, you need some extra things. So we will probably provide like Docker Compose production YAMLs that will include also LLM proxy that will cache, that will allow caching the responses and redirecting if you it can also have redirections if you have money expired or some LLM is not available, it can redirect. Then also there are some other like additional things. For example, we support OPIC that allows better traceability. They have user interface that traces in user interface with like all the steps that went through the LLM calls. And we also support length views. And yeah, so things can be pretty easily customizable and configured either with environment variables or with the code. And also, if you look into the way how Mealy search querying is done, it's just a Python function that is called. We are now using GNI-AI embeddings together with text search, so it's a hybrid search, but you can just write a function that will do something else and that will not use local Docker Compose in case if you don't want to use Docker Compose. Obviously, also, I mean, it will take more time, but you can also deploy everything without any Docker locally. But the core idea is that you don't have to, you will save a lot of time because you have so many projects, like you have Python-based agents, you have MongoDB to store history, you have too many projects, so it's a big headache to deploy like everything locally, unless you have containerized Podman or Docker environment. So I think that's a major ideas. And also one aspect is that in this REST API container that also has Swagger, you can also interact with an agent with OpenAI compatible APIs. That means that programmatically you can, so for example, I gave a link to Glucose DAO org that is like in our case a chat, but you can also connect to the REST endpoint and ask it questions as if it is a regular ChatGPT model, but it will have all these agentic tools under the hood. I hope I addressed your question, Nikhil.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was just looking through the Docker YAML file, and yeah, I think I found out where it is. So I have another small question. I see that the logs are going to be stored in the MongoDB database, right? But also there is another folder called logs. So would the chat history be stored both locally as well as in MongoDB database, or is it only in MongoDB?
Well, MongoDB is used by Chat UI because it's like history of the user talking. But logs are for internal things, like internally when we have some. So the logs folders are not for storing chat history, but for storing different events like tool calling. So when you need to debug stuff, you can actually go through those logs and see like what was called, what was executed. Because reading the Docker Compose in a terminal is a bit a headache. Also, it's not like integrated here, but we can also add Google and other similar type authorization in case if we want to have user accounts. But we thought it's a bit an overhead to provide it in like quick, easy to set up repository, but it can be configured.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I don't have any other questions.
So then I'll probably ask some of mine. Thank you so much for the demo. And I, while you were showing, I looked at the code, and I think that the quality is really good. And my first question is in the chat agent profiles. The model that is mentioned is the Grok Llama 70 billion versatile. So I didn't find this model on Hugging Face, and that's the first question. So what are the, like, what model can be put there? And then, for example, with this model, 70 billions sounds like a lot. Does it mean that GPU is needed to run this locally, or is it quantized model?
Well, so far I'm giving a link. It's so we are using this light LLM library that technically allows interacting with different models with the same API. That means in our case, what we are using. So actually, it's a bit confusing because there is Elon Musk Grok, and there is also Grok U. So Grok U is a startup that does. So I gave a link to it that does super fast inference with its specific hardware, and it provides reason. So it has a free account where you can have like popular libraries. Popular models like Llama 3.3 and like distilled DeepSeek. So I think it's like it would be a big headache to push user also deploy his own model, but he can actually do it because Light LLM, it supports Llama, it supports like all like standard providers, and you can have, if you want to deploy model locally, in such case you have to use whatever you prefer. Can be Llama, can be LLM, can be something else, and then you have to in the agent profiles for models that we already know. For example, for Grok U, we already know where it's REST API base, but for models that you host locally, you will have to provide the model name, and you have to give the address of REST API that is like Llama REST API or whatever you use to deploy it. Hugging Face models are also supported. That means that you can also provide the Hugging Space parameters. You have to configure it, and also with Hugging Space, you also have to be careful because many spaces they kind of opened when people are using them, and if it's not like a paid space, it usually takes like two minutes to activate the space that it was not used. So you can get out of it can be long wait. I don't know. Did I address the question?
Yeah, definitely. Just maybe that, I don't know if it's if all that you said is mentioned in the README, but I think if it's not, then it's a good idea to add it because it's not clear exactly like what ID from what providers I can put. But if it's there already, then of course that's perfect. And then one more question is, again, I'm just looking at this agent profiles YAML. As I understand, this is the most important file. The assistants index and those magic integers. So what are those, and like should someone change them or just leave them be?
Well, the thing is, it's Newton Winter, one of our core developers. He just wanted to configure, if you open, for example, I don't know, you open the chat or you have this, well, if you have more than one model, you have like a model selection menu. And the index is more like in which order the model should be shown. And yeah, so most of the like big part of the YAML properties that you see actually are not mandatory. Probably we have to provide more detailed documentation. Actually, the YAML format is more like things are more documented. So just chat is like a repository that allows you to deploy like a quick chat with your agent. But the inner working, I mean, the way how agents are implemented, the way how tools are implemented are in our just agents library. I think for at least at Zeller, for one of Ladas, we actually made a workshop there. And yeah, and we give a reference to actually check some stuff. If you cannot find it in just chat readme, you can read just agents readme for like details, because the core idea of just agents library is that you can define agents in two ways: in a regular way with Python, or because we support Pydantic classes. So these agent profiles are technically Pydantic YAML serialization of the classes that we have. And we introduced it when, from practical experience, we understood that in many cases it's a bad idea to mix system prompts, configuration, and code in one place, like many libraries do. And that's why we provided this alternative way of defining the agents, and added support of having multiple agents in the same YAML files, because they sometimes can be dependent on each other.
Understood. So those assistance index just shouldn't be touched. If, for example, if I wanted to deploy
you can change it. It just will change it in the list of models. It will just change what is higher, what is lower.
Okay, and then probably the last question, but relevant to this one. Is it correct that this Sugar Jenny, the first agent in this YAML file, is like a supervisor agent that decides which other agents to call? Like, what is the best, which agent we should use right now? Or there is another something that is inside this just agents library, and we just don't configure it, and it's there.
Well, the thing is, in the user interface, so there is like so you have like which agent is selected by default, like with the highest agent index. You can change it, so you can actually switch between multiple agents as you want. And typically, the way how agents interactions are done is we have these tools. It's technically a Python function. Livia, I don't know, maybe you can show this agent. She showed actually agent locator. So the function called agent locator, and any agent can, if it has a tool agent locator, and if it knows the names of other agents, it can have an ability to call, so it will call this function. If you like in system prompt, you explain that. Livia, maybe you can actually explain with practical examples, and actually can make any agent call other agents if you want to. And also some agents are technical, like for example, RAG agent and agent and chat naming agents that makes topics in the chat. We made it hidden because we don't want users to interact with them directly, because they are kind of helpers. But our agents that are not hidden, any of them can deal with other agents. And maybe Livia, can you just explain in details for Glucose DAO? You are muted, Livia. Livia, I think you are editing the output device, but try to say something.
Thank you.
Okay, second Livia can be heard.
But you're muted as well on your phone.
I think you are either very quiet or muted. Very quiet.
Okay. Now it should be okay, right?
Yeah, now it's good.
Okay, so I solved this other thing. So what I showed first was the agent locator function with the call expert agent, which is the function that can basically call another agent. Doesn't matter which agent you need to call, it's just that it can call another one. That's why it's the call expert agent. On the other part, wait a second to get to here. And the chat agent profiles. Yes, the first agent, the assistant, you can call it that it works as a, how was it, mediator, I think, sorry, because it uses this function to just sort through the calls, basically. So by using this function to sort through the calls, it either goes to the more specific Sugar Genie original, which is here down, which has the Meili search and RAG index, or it goes to the Sugar Genie generic, which is a basic agent, just to answer the question. So yes, the first one, which also has the smallest index, 19, because it has to be the higher, is the one that is accessed. But the only function of it is to sort if it goes to generic or if it goes to original, basically, and to call it, to have this calling agent locator function which can be called. So that was in the particular use case. And it was split like this because what we discovered was because we tried, okay, let's put an agent that has all the functions and so forth. We kind of discovered that an agent that knows it all is not always the best. Because if you put a generic question, the first thing it will try, it will think, how do you define it? It's a generic or not question. So it had issues with that. Then we had a problem of context because usually specific questions require things like, let's say, searching kind of large amounts. And in the case of Grok free keys, we were rate limited kind of often. And we were not really happy about that process. And if you're going into indexing, then you just have to be able to search for it, not to be a very smart agent. That's why, yeah, that's why we used, actually, you do have to be a smarter agent, sorry. We used the Grok Llama for, but here with paid keys, for the semantic search, basically. And we used a, cheaper, higher context key for the generic ones, because like I said, each model has its advantages and disadvantages. Also, a key that I think that I did not present, sorry, it's this test folder. You'll actually like it probably, because we had to decide what kind of agent we should use for each, what kind of model we should use for each of our agents. And we had an assortment of keys, paid or free, but we had to see how it replies. Thus, we have a model where you have this questions text, which doesn't matter. It's a text file where you write the questions that you want to ask. This is what we wanted to ask. We just wrote the questions. You have the pie, which all it does is ask these questions to this model config YAML, where I just literally configured simple agents for every model that we had. And we thought that they would be
possibly good in answering. So you can see here, outquoted and stuff like that. We actually also tried DeepSeek, and we also tried to call our own agent, because look here, custom agent, where we actually called the Sugar Genie assistant. We wanted to see how how our model is going to reply to this. And after this py file basically asks all the questions with every agent, it returns a CVS. I was too lazy actually to implement Excel. I made it manually, honestly, but that's beyond the point. The thing is, the output looks something like, oh, wait a second, just chat test. It looks something like, let's find, this one is easier to, to be read. Yeah, so this was from the first try. Let's go up. Yeah, so you have the question, and every column is another model, basically. So you have this comparison table, and you can actually look. So you see custom agent, DeepSeek, or whatever the order is, and you can see.
Sorry, probably Anton wants to add something. He's holding his hand.
Sorry.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify that what Livia is showing now, it's not part of just chat. It's the way how she tested things in her fork. And actually there, you notice that she wrote some code. So she actually used just agents calls to actually open YAML and run a comparative a comparison here. So part of like agent development is that you have some set of, I think actually Nick Hill even does it way more often than us in his projects, that you make a set of questions and you want to play a bit with how you configure different agents and which models you use, because some models are better answering some questions, some models are just free, some models are cheap, some models are expensive, and here Livia played a bit. I mean, Glucose DAO is like still like really. We still have to add production stuff like many workers and light LLM proxy, but that's what she did for like Glucose DAO org prototype to actually get basic understanding which agents she needs and which agents she doesn't. And in her case, actually, it's her decision to like have this 3-agent configuration. We started with just 1 agent in the beginning. So you can like have whatever configuration you want. And I also wanted like regarding Vlada's question. So the state of the library, and actually the reason why we decided to make this mini call with you is that we put a lot of time actually developing it, and now we actually want to do outreach to actually get we didn't spend any time promoting the library, and we just want you and your friends, your colleagues to try out the library, give feedback, and things that have like issues, you just open issues and we extend documentation, we change APIs where people don't find them comfortable, because when you develop some project for like some relatively long time, you already got used to it and you don't really know for like an external person what would cause problems and what they would like. And actually when Livia joined the team, we actually had to change a lot of stuff, because we saw how a person who was not using this library, how she thinks.
Yeah, well, it was my decision because I tried it and it didn't it didn't return the result I was expecting. So that's why I split it, and actually I discovered it was a better solution from more points of view than just one. But why I presented this test part was mostly because I think it's useful for others to actually do test it, because otherwise you would test it manually, and we've kind of been there. It's doable, but it's not fun. And in this case, you just automize. And honestly, the greatest fear I had was not overspending credits or stuff like that, because you just leave it and it runs, and you see the result. That is good. But and then, I mean, you don't know exactly what happens. For example, from this part, we learned that we didn't specify for people how to call their agents. So if they want, they can actually access their agents outside the chat, but they have to use this address with V1 and to use custom LLM provider OpenAI, which is totally counterintuitive for a normal person. I mean, why would you think to put OpenAI? It's a custom agent, but that's how it works. And we also have issues with DeepSeek. So in the DeepSeek, the one from the Chinese, they still have issues with their callings. However, the Grok DeepSeek actually works, but we didn't kind of found, let's say, I mean, to be very useful, because we try to find, like I said, economic and intelligent models, and it still uses the API key from Grok. So it's not really of a great help. I mean, Llama is still better, and it uses the same API. So we decided we will wait until the Chinese version, which actually has free API, will get somewhat better. So if there are models which pop up, you can actually test them here as long as you have their API and that they can be called. So that's an advantage I actually think of in this code, because you can see and you can keep the same questions and see how they reply in comparison. Like for the same question, do I still have it opened? Let me see a bit. For the same question, let's moving Grok agent. I think I had a learn LM somewhere. Yeah, this one. So this is Grok agent. You can see it's has text, and learn LM agent is literally 2 lines. So you can see that some have a tendency to summarize more, some have a tendency to be more like text-wise, others want to go like bullet points, and basically kind of you can see these differences. You can see and compare how you want to like target your replies, because it's kind of an important part. And you can see where they have errors and why. So this is an older result that I took, and we solved this column, and we solved this column. This one was still not solved because, well, we're still waiting for updates. So you can improve and eliminate error. That's why I thought it was actually important to mention. Okay, I've seen. Oh, Vlada,
I see that Vlada needs to go. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
thought maybe before leaving she would give any feedback, but we probably can catch her later. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so we guys, we what we really need is to get your feedback, and if that also maybe you would find some time to try the library and give and also see how it goes. And if you like it, please post about it on your social media and show to colleagues. Because our like main issue now is that we didn't really promote it, and we really need people to actually know about the library and start using it, and I hopefully contribute to it. And also, and one more thing, if you want to run, for example, some non-LLM machine learning models, we actually did such stuff. For example, with Glucose DAO, we had a demo where user provided her glucose data, and gluformer transformer models was run to analyze the data, and it was done in a way that it was called inside of the Python tool function. It's just like custom Python code that's called the gluformer model. And we actually think maybe the future is that LLM models can orchestrate, and depending on the user question, they can call specialized models, call search, or call some databases.
That sounds really cool. Yeah, with calling using other machine learning models as tools. Yeah, I don't have any more questions. Thank you so much for explanation. So from my side, I cannot guarantee that I'll run this all, even though you said it's like 3 terminal commands, but I guess it still will take some more time for me. But I think I already know some of the things that I would like to see in the README, which I don't see right now. So maybe I'll just later message Anton with those things. But overall, I think the quality is really great, and you did a good job. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Also, you know our, I think you are in our Telegram chat actually. We have a Longevity Genie Telegram chat. So you can probably even just directly, let me see if I see Vlada there. You actually in our Telegram chat, Longevity Genie. So you can, for the specific stuff that are specific to libraries, you can open GitHub issues, but for the question, you can just write in any of our, we have development chat topic. I think there you can write like some questions. Yeah, and also maybe you can give links to your colleagues at SoftServe, those who deal with LLMs. Maybe some of them would be interested. Also, if you don't mind, I will see if I can cut part of this video where Livia explains the library, so we can post it as like part of tutorials.
Sure. We also have marketing strategies at our company, so I know how important all of that is, of course.
Okay, Nikhil, what's your feedback?
Yeah, it's very great. Everything has been so nicely written, and thanks for taking to all of this in the call today. So I am just trying to run right now on my local machine. I had recently upgraded from Windows and Linux to Mac, so I needed to change a little bit, like just add 2 lines in the Docker Compose to make the platform explicitly be AMD 64 and not ARM 64.
Can you add it to README, because nobody in our team uses Mac, and some people like Livia hate it. And yeah, okay, by Vlada. Yeah, and if you manage to make it work, it's better at least to write it in README, or even maybe write a pull request, because we just never tested it on Mac. We tested on Windows VSL, Windows, and Linux. Yeah, I hope it will work on Mac, because it's IRM architecture.
I have to like add, Anton. I hate that they're very expensive for what they do, and you can do the things that they do with cheaper parts. And you pay basically for design and brand. That's my issue with them.
No, I agree with that. I have never used Mac in my life until now. I only bought it only 2 months back because my Windows laptop completely broke. And this time I bought M4. The reason is it's able to do inference of even 70 billion model. like essentially I'm running Llama 70B locally. So that was the only reason I bought. I finally converted to Mac.
Anton, you're muted.
You mean you can get like Llama 7T? Like it's like a lot of GPU. It's like
No, exactly. So you don't need to use GPU because the M4, people have made a lot of libraries called llama.cpp, which runs on M4 and M3 architecture. Because Apple now has something called unified memory. So there is no GPU RAM separate from CPU RAM. It's just the same RAM. So if you buy a 64 GB Mac, then essentially around 48 GB of that is used as GPU memory. And this project called llama.cpp lets you run LLMs locally. You could just try checking it out. It's so amazing.
But
And it
why
only
does it
works on
work only in Mac? That's it. Why? I mean, I have 128 gigas of RAM, and I've always wondered why can't I convert it to like
well, you can
GPU?
run stuff actually on CPU, but it will be really slow, and you can
I
actually
know.
run really. Also, guys, maybe I will stop recording because we are
Okay.
now going a bit off topic. Yeah.